Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 235 of the J Situation Podcast. I'm recording this on October 29th, 2024. How are all you wonderful folks doing on this spooky day? It's Halloween. No, it's almost Halloween. Yeah, it's the 29th, so we got a couple of days. And then when this is published, it'll be the 30th, so it's like Halloween Eve. All Hallows Eve. It's like, don't cast spells, it's bad. No, it's the best time of year. Right? Wonderful trick-or-treating. You got candy. You got all kinds of mischief. The weather is changing. It's nice outside. It's a great time to go shooting. Yeah, it's deer season's beginning all over the country. We're going to roll into Thanksgiving. Christmas is going to be here before you know it. Then you got New Year's Eve and everything. Oh, my goodness. Oh, man. Boy, howdy do I love fall. It's the best season, right? It's got to be. Fall's got to be the best. Yeah, so anyway, check out the photo that I posted with this episode. So I thought it was appropriate to post this. It's a little weird. What you see in the photograph is an older generation OSS silencer with two parts. Yeah, there's a BPR, which is a back pressure regulator, and there's an SRM, which is a signature reduction module. Yeah, so you put them together and you have a 2.5 pound reflex silencer for your AR. Yeah, mission failed successfully. It's ridiculous, right? But they were onto something. Yeah, I think they were onto something. And so in the photo next to it, I put the Flow 556 Ti. Yeah, a few generations newer, right? 3D printed, super light, much higher performance. Yeah, so I guess the question is, I think the theme of this episode is going to be, do folks learn? And, if they stick with an idea, can they improve? And I would say the answer is sometimes no. But I would also say the answer is sometimes yes. And I think this is one of those times. So let's dig into the HUXWRX tech during this episode and kind of see what we see. Yeah? So let's get on with the show. So if you've been here before, welcome back. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome. We're glad to have you. Yeah, we are. And so there are timestamps in the episode description for you to skip to where you would like. Never forget that. It's very useful. But you know what? If you would like to hang around with me for a little bit longer, I'm going to quickly speak to you about the companies who make this podcast possible. And they're real companies with real people, and they provide a real benefit to all of this. And it's awesome. And we're honored to have them. This podcast is sponsored by Legion Athletics. That's right. Nothing you do, exercise, sports, anything is worth doing without consistency. You have to do things all the time if you want to be good at them. And Legion Athletics can help you with that. Okay? Whey protein, pre-workout, post-workout. Do they have everything you need? Probably not, but they have a lot of it. Okay? Creatine, vitamins, minerals. They're minerals. Yeah, visit legionathletics.com. There's a link in the show notes. Code word PewScience to save 20% off of your first order. And if you keep using that code for double loyalty points, you'll end up getting a net 10% off everything going forward using the code. Get strong. It's important. This episode is also brought to you by Silencer Shop. They've done a lot, not only for consumers in the industry, but for tons of dealers large and small nationwide. If you're a new dealer looking to get started in the space, maybe you can't hold a lot of inventory, or maybe you want to maintain low overhead, Silencer Shop might be able to help you out. You can use their kiosk, do your fingerprints and photos electronically, and in turn, you cut down on errors, you simplify your silencer purchasing process, you get a money-back guarantee. It's pretty good. No transfer fees, no paperwork errors, just you and your silencer with no drama. Truly a silencer underset simplified. And Top Gun Range out of Houston also supports this podcast. If you are in the Houston area, and even if you're just passing through on a business trip or something, why not take your clients, or, take a little time off of work, maybe play hooky a little bit, drop into Top Gun Range. Check out their indoor 15-lane shooting range, largest firearm rental fleet in the entire state of Texas. You can rent pistols and rifles and shotguns and machine guns and silencers. You can rent the silencers, shoot the silencers on the guns that we test with. It's amazing. View everything at topgunrange.com. See what you want to shoot. Call them. Give them a call. Go to the website. Get their phone number. Call them. Ask them, hey, man. Hey, Kyle. Can I shoot this silencer on this gun? And he'll be like, absolutely, sir. Come on in. You can find them on Instagram. You can maybe shoot them a DM at Top Gun Range on Instagram. They'll be happy to speak with you about that. This episode is also brought to you by Capital Armory, because it's no secret that you need options as a consumer. And silencers are in very high demand. And approval times are lickety split. So what happens when you need something and you got to look, you're finding, you're looking, you're Googling, you're trying to find trustworthy places to buy silencers? Capital Armory is here to help you with a pretty unique twist. Not only do they have a large selection of silencers, not only do they help you with the painful paperwork, they can ship them directly to your house. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. Let's say you live in one of the 42 states where silencers are legal. Let's just suppose that, okay? You can order a silencer from your living room and have it shipped directly to that same living room. That's right. It really is that easy. Capital Armory, silencer shipped directly to your door. And finally, this podcast is brought to you by today, and always. This podcast is brought to you by the Pew Science Laboratory. I'm the technical director of the lab. In the interest of public education, the lab sponsors the podcast, runs a public research effort. We continue to push the silencer industry forward one test at a time. Visit pewscience.com for the suppression ratings, the simplest and most accurate hearing safe rating for suppressed small arms. It is based on true human inner ear response of the entire gunshot, from before the combustion takes place all the way until all the combustion is gone in the true free field. It's great. Pew Science is the home of the silencer sound standard. 7 sections, the most in-depth and accurate silencer data and analysis in the known universe. It's all available to the public 24/7 at pewscience.com. And you can support this podcast. You can support all of our research effort at the lab. You can support the public testing we do. You can even get member exclusive research supplements by joining with a membership at pewscience.com. We're going to talk about one of those today. It's a pretty big deal. Also, if you just want to give a little bit and you don't like monthly recurring things, that's cool too. You can hit the donate button on the podcast page or the review page. Every little bit helps. And something that's free, it doesn't cost you anything. You can just spread the word. Give this a like and subscribe on the old YouTube or maybe Spotify where you listen, or maybe it's iTunes and you give a great review and you give a 5-star and you say, hey, you know what? This guy's all right. You know what I'm saying? Let folks know that silencers and guns are awesome. Normalize the use of suppressed small arms. It would do us a solid. Okay, 1 second. Excuse me. We have 3 topics prepared for you today. This is going to be a continuation of next week, but it's going to be much more technical today, or just at least a little bit more focused. Topic 1, we're going to go into the technical discussion of Sound Signature Review 6167, which was the Flow 556 Ti on the Mark 18. Okay, we're going to go talk technically about that. And then in topic 2, we'll look at the technical discussion of the white paper 168 with the same silencer. That's on the M4A1 R3. It's the mid-length gas 14.5-inch test house. So completely different than the 10.3. And we'll also talk about why the results were somewhat similar, which I think were somewhat surprising to many of you, which is cool. And then topic 3, this was the member research supplement, the 169. It's not public, but it is for members only. And although we can't go super deep into it, this compared several low back pressure technologies. What we're going to do is I just want to address some things about it, and maybe that will help put things in perspective, and maybe it'll entice you to go read it, and maybe not. That's okay too, but at least you'll know it's there for when you do need it. Okay? All right. And I just realized I don't even have a pen. Oh my gosh, dude. Here's one. It's been a long week. But it's Tuesday. Yeah, well, some weeks are longer than others. This month is we published 7 papers this month, so I don't know if you know that, but it's nuts. All right. Topic 1 at a time of 9 minutes and 45 seconds. Okay. 10-minute intro, is that reasonable? Well, no. Some people would say no. Some people would say it's just fine. I can tell you right now, this podcast is going to be long because there's a lot to say and it's important. So topic 1, yeah. So the Mark 18 test of the Flow 556 Ti, Article 167, technical discussion. I really want to thank you for your patience while we put this together. I know a lot of you waited a long time for this data. This silencer's been out for a minute. We just haven't been able to get to it. So it was actually tested quite a long time ago. Sometimes things get published at different times. It is the nature of lab operations and actually the client needs, and when they kind of want things published too, there's strategery, as they say. So yeah, big thanks to HUXWRX for continuing to trust our laboratory to perform independent third-party performance validation. I know I say that a lot, but I mean it, and as I spoke about briefly in the intro, this isn't HUXWRX's or OSS's first rodeo, right? Like these guys didn't just start trying to make low back pressure silencers, right? Like they didn't just start. Like on the contrary, they were some of the first ones to really push them, right? And also probably the biggest entity pushing them in modern times. I would say that, it took them a while. And on this very podcast, longtime listeners will remember my absolute skepticism regarding this technology. And actually specifically my skepticism of the performance efficacy. Look, and I've said this before, I was a lot more cynical about, I think, a lot of stuff in the silencer space back then, and I think rightfully so. I think I deserve that. That I think I had a right to be cynical, and I think over the years, various technologies have, they're further progressed, and I think HUXWRX is probably one of the most, I would say, stubbornly consistent, one of the most stubbornly consistent companies chasing a wild idea. I think they didn't give up, And we've seen this happen. I mean, you've had front row seats to it. So, you look at that picture, you look at that old silencer, in the photo there. It's a modular reflex system. And you ask yourself, why on earth would they have made something that long, that heavy, that complex? It's 2.5 pounds, guys. Why would they make it that long and heavy and that complex? Why would you do that? And at first glance, it does seem silly. Now, a lot of people, they took a lot of crap for that, man. They took a lot of heat. OSS has taken a lot of heat over the years. And it looks ridiculous. And not only does it seem silly, but, especially when you've shot the thing and you know how loud it can be. And you're like, and me included, a lot of folks are asking themselves, why even bother? Why even bother doing something like that? And sure, you're not going to get blowback on your host weapon. Okay, cool. But then you start to think to yourself, well, man, I can tune my gun maybe, right? I can tune my gun. Maybe I use a conventional silencer. I'd be way quieter. I can hack that. I can be all right with that, you thinking. So you say, why on earth would I go to the bother of using something like shown in the photo? Why would I do that? And I think if I speak for a ton of people, I mean, those are super common questions back when these were first hitting the scene. And that was like generation 5 too. It's not like that, or at least they called it that, right? And it was common to ask yourself these questions, and it was so common. It was so common in the silencer community, I think in the weapons community, that OSS earned a reputation for super loud silencers. I mean, that's what the reputation was, and it's very well known, and it's not controversial to say it. I don't think anyone. There's no controversy here at all. It's a matter of public record. That was the gist of it, and most of us thought it was true. And why? Because it was true. Turns out it was true, and there was no mystery here. Other than, and this is the thing, this is the nuance. The mystery was, could you make this technology better? And you didn't hear that a lot. All you heard was, well, it's loud, who cares? And people got really mad, and they said really horrible things about people, and they call people names, because that's what the firearms industry does, especially on the internet. They all have to be very, very mean. Okay? So the real question was, well, can you make it better? And like, objectively, when you look at it, the basic idea is pretty interesting. The physics are pretty sound if you can achieve them. So what's the goal? What is the goal? Even looking at, and I disassembled the silencer for the photograph, so you can see the old one, and you can see kind of a window into how it works in the core that's sitting there. So what is the goal of the technology? Well, the goal is efficiency. But it's not efficiency like I think some silencer manufacturers would want to define efficiency. I mean, some of them, like, that what do? You got to compute the volume. You got to take the square root of the length of your forearm, and then you add it together, and then you got to figure out your water displacement. Then you do a rain dance, and then you get a number. And then if you carry the one, I have the most efficient silencer. They do a dance, and they have all these like metrics that they want to say is no, no, it's not make-believe efficiency. I think that's like an elaborate cope, is what some people do. I don't think I'm talking about that. I think when we talk about the physics efficiency in the OSS to the HUXWRX silencers, we're talking about maximizing combustion gas contact with surface area, right? And we're talking about increasing turbulence, and we're talking about maintaining velocity. And I think these three efficiency metrics are tied together. And in my mind, they're kind of tied together in like a tripod, right? Like when any one leg, you lose any one leg and you got an issue. That's the analogy I think I would like to use here. And so with the increased surface area contact and the turbulence, you ramp up heat transfer efficiency, yes? Yes, we've gone over that before. Okay, that's a physical mechanism of efficiency increase, and it's not subjective. It's not subjective at all. It's the way heat transfer works, okay? And what's the third leg of the tripod? Well, it's the flow. You have to maintain flow, because if you stagnate, there's literally no reason to use the technology, right? There would be no reason to even try this if you started to stagnate and you don't maintain that velocity, at least within a velocity tolerance. And so really, I would say this is why, by literal definition, they call it flow-through. You see? And this is also why, literally by definition, other people calling other silencers flow-through are incorrect. And I know there's going to be someone... Did HUXWRX pay me to say that? Absolutely not. In fact, if you're a conspiracy theorist, which I know there's tons of you, you should probably listen up. I'm sorry to pee in your Cheerios, because I don't mean to. I don't mean to cause you a problem, but HUXWRX would most likely want me not to say what I say about these technologies being different, okay? Right? Because like whenever other silencer companies try to make low back pressure silencers, like sometimes there can be like patent infringement and like blah blah, like all this stuff, right? Like I don't want to get involved with that. I don't know. It's not my area. I'm not an attorney. I'm certainly not a patent attorney. It's not my area of expertise to be one. I've never claimed to practice law. I've never claimed to be an expert about that. However, I will say, when you examine the silencer technology like we have at Pew Science, you can plainly see nothing is like these HUXWRX flow-through silencers in totality. Correct? Like, yes, there could be some features like copied. Yes, absolutely. Sure, folks can try to mimic them. Absolutely. They can try to use similar marketing too. Yes, you can try. Yes, but I'll tell you right now, and this might go against what HUXWRX thinks, but I am telling you, in my opinion, it is super easy to see the difference in a true flow-through silencer and something that's not. It's super easy. Right? What physical mechanisms did I just list? Turbulence, surface area contact, velocity. Let's get more specific now. It's a technical talk. Let's get more specific now. Right? We're going to go deep. Okay? Go back to the photo posted with the episode. look at it. If you're listening on YouTube, you can't help it because there's no video. It's just a photo staring you in the face the whole time. That's on purpose. I don't want to mess with video. There's no reason. Look at the picture. What's the overall difference between the modern Flow 556 Ti and the old modular reflex silencer next to it in pieces? What's the difference? Same company. Yeah, they used to be called OSS, whatever. Same company, just different generations of the technology. What's the overall difference? It's the size. Yes? Oh, it's the size. Bingo. There it is. That's the difference, the size. And why is that so important? Technically, it's important because there's one thing you can't cheat. No matter who you are, no matter where you're from, no matter what you believe, say it with me now. Pew Science veterans, say it with me, the dimension of time. Oh, that's right. That's right. All the physical phenomena I've described to you depend on an inescapable reality. Something that we all wish we could escape in some way or another, but alas, we cannot. The dimension of time. Okay. So let's talk more about it. So when OSS first started to do this, okay, we were there, or at least some of us were, the people that still listen to this podcast and they're old like me. when they first started doing this, 3D printing, of steel and titanium and stuff, it wasn't exactly cost effective. Okay, now it was a real thing for sure. Like, look, go talk to anyone working at Oak Ridge at the time, right? At Oak Ridge National Lab, they were printing stuff. But other than that, I mean, in the consumer, there weren't. You were not 3D printing steel and titanium silencers like for funsies, like economically. Like, no way, not yet. It wasn't there. And so, like, traditional subtractive manufacturing, I mean, that was like traditional machining. That was the ticket, right? That's what you were doing. And so when you're doing that, what do you need to maximize surface area contact? I mean, think about how their silencers are working, right? They want to maintain velocity. We talked about that. And especially in early time. We've talked about that for many years. As the losses build exponentially, because you're going to build losses as you flow. As those losses build exponentially, the thought is that, like, eventually it's not going to matter that you're building the flow loss, because the kinematic window, like where it matters for the weapon system, that's going to be over. So by the time you slow down enough, well, the event's already over with the gun, so it's probably okay. So then you can probably lower the flow rate. And when you look at that tolerance and you vary that parameter, well, there's a tolerance in both the amplitude and the time window. So there's two dimensions of tolerance, like that you're simultaneously chasing in the performance window, right? So what do you need? Well, you need the most length possible. I mean, that's a given. So like if you want to somehow like parameterize the performance envelope, to say that like in a exact way, and you want to look at different dimensionality, like you would look at time and length. Length would be in one dimension to focus in on. You want to maximize that dimension in your experiment or in your design. So you could think about, and let me do this like with a high level analogy. So think of a HUXWRX silencer as they're working like a runway. Okay, the longer the runway, the much more efficient the takeoff, like in general, right? Now, if you run out of runway, you're going to have a problem. And it's not the movies, so you don't miraculously like recover and take off. So in order to create enough path length, and that's not good. That's not a good technical analogy, so don't read into that in like a physics sense. I'm just trying to give like the layman, like you need enough runway to like take off and be successful. That's my point here. So to create enough path length, you had to make the silencer larger. Correct? Easy. Okay. Easy to understand. But not only did you have to make it larger, like what if you really wanted to create a long path length, like a really long one? Well, you could simply create more by going back over the barrel, right? You know what I mean? And so if you think some reflex silencers gain efficiency, well, think about what something like this will do. I mean, it's literally the essence of their technology. Of all the things to make in a reflex envelope, of all the things, what would you really want to do? I mean, what technology would you really want to try it with? Well, you would want to try it with this. It's the thing that needs the most length, so why not use a design philosophy that would maximize length, like reflex? I mean, of all the things, I mean, it would seem prudent to try it. And that's what they did. Right? And so I don't want to continue to drag this out into like a history lesson, but you saw the progression. This is the essence of the technology, right? You saw the progression publicly. They finally got, like, after that craziness, they went to the HXQD series, right? That HXQD, the Helix QD, the quick detach, that now you're taking it off, putting it on. This is like way more user friendly, starting to look more like a traditional rifle silencer you would want to use. That's probably when people started to really start to like them more, I think. You know, I think that's probably when they advanced enough so that a lot of people thought, well, hey, you know what? This is kind of cool. This is working better than I thought it would. Huh. Now, is it the quietest? Well, no, it's absolutely not. It's not the quietest at all. But, you know, it's definitely better than unsuppressed. My weapon's working pretty good. Okay, it's pretty good. And then you start to get a lot of fans buying these things, right? Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, there were people that hated them, and you know, a lot of people that said they hated them because someone told them to hate them. And then, you know, a lot of people hated them because a friend of a friend of a friend told them that they were loud. And some people had shot the old ones and they were loud. And so they had firsthand experience. And I'm like, well, I'm not getting bit again by that. I learned my lesson, you know, like once bitten, twice shy type of thing. And so that's where we were. And then that's around the time that Pew Science started really testing them, right? One second. That's around the time that Pew Science started really testing these silencers, and you know, I was in one of those boats. I had significant doubts, significant. I was like, no. I was like, these aren't going to work well, and yeah, but we tested them, and we analyzed them. And we figured out what made them tick, like we do all this technology. We figured out, give us a month with a silencer, and we're going to figure out how it works. And HUXWRX took notice, and they flew me up there. they got in contact with me, and they flew me up there. I visited their lab, their internal lab. We compared technical notes. Their engineers and I compared technical notes. I showed them my research. They showed me some of their internal research. You know, our data and analysis was congruent. There wasn't anything we really disagreed on. There were some surprises I think both of the parties shared with each other at a high level. I think in some specific things they let me do some things there that I was very interested in doing, and I looked at their apparatus. We talked about how they're measuring things. It was interesting. I talked about this on the podcast, and this was one of the first public mentions that I gave about Pew Science laboratory data being peer-reviewed by an outside company, right? And is also one of the first examples of a third-party independent laboratory validating performance claimed by a silencer company. This is one of the first times this has happened. And not the only time. This is one of the first times in recent history, and it was pretty historic, I thought. And if you do want to go further down memory lane, go ahead. This is all public record. I think I was looking at my notes earlier, and I took a note here. I think it was around episode 60 or 61 or 62 or something of the podcast. So it was like 2020 or 2021. Is probably 2021. Okay, so that's public record. This all happened. Like we don't erase episodes. All of our episodes are still. You can go listen to them, and so the rest is really history when you look at this. And so HUXWRX ended up, you know, and the reason I'm really going through this, and I know you want to hear about the Flow 556 Ti, but if you don't understand all this beforehand, you're gonna miss a lot, and you're really not gonna understand it. And this is a technical talk, so that's why I'm going through this. So HUXWRX ended up being one of our silencer company clients. Right, you know that. We've enjoyed having them and helping them. And I think we've learned some great things along the way. It's been great. And I want to tell you, there's a list. I want to tell you some of the things we've learned about their tech. And the things we've learned about their tech, it's not just from the tests we've done for them, like contracted with them. It's the stuff we've done by testing their stuff before they even know who we were. Guys, we learned stuff about HUXWRX and OSS before they knew what Pew Science was. Remember, that's why they came to us, because they saw that we were independently validating what they had already known. Okay? It was cool. So basically, this is like 4 years of research discoveries that really only Pew Science can claim to have discovered outside of HUXWRX publicly, because no one else was doing this, right? To this day, really. What did we learn? 1 second. Or rather, what have we learned and what have we told you? Well, we learned the technology needs path length to be efficient, full stop. Okay, we've learned that, cool. The technology is very sensitive to combustion pressure and duration. So in other words, what's another way to say that? Saturation environment in the silencer dynamically, right? What's another way to think about that? Well, the technology suffers in performance when in a low pressure environment. So this is only true, or that only holds, if it's a true flow-through technology. And you've seen that with subsonic 300 blackout. We proved it independently. It's now considered common knowledge, which is correct. Okay. Oh, also, it loses efficiency every time you drop pressure. So what can that happen with? Well, even when you have a longer barrel with a high pressure cartridge, like with your AR, you can still drop efficiency when you increase your barrel length. And stay tuned for the next topic with the M4, because we did that test too. We're going to get to it, okay? I'm going to make sure you understand that. This is all part of the game. What else did we learn? Or what else have we discovered publicly? You can increase efficiency by increasing the path length. And that's a corollary to the first thing I said, that the technology needs path length to be efficient. The corollary here is that you can increase the efficiency by increasing the path length. And how did they do that in later generations, guys, from the modular thing in the picture? Well, they used 3D printing. What did it allow them to do? It actually allowed them to overlap the flow paths more efficiently. And they could use more complex geometry. And then what could they gain from that? Go back to the tripod. They could ramp up the turbulence. They could increase the efficiency of the heat transfer. They're getting double efficiency gains here. They have more surface area contact for a longer period of time with greater turbulence, and they're maintaining flow velocity. 3D printing helped them do that because it's a lot easier to make. It's more cost effective. It makes it viable. It makes the technology viable. Okay? And what's a really big thing we discovered that's really important? This is like directly deep in Pew Science research. With enough turbulence and a long enough path length, you can raise omega. Oh, yes. And the huge thing with a true flow-through silencer is that alpha still stays low. And that's so huge. That's right. Their early time flow rate remains high with low stagnation, but the turbulence and the path length is still of sufficient increase that it takes longer to build that external positive phase impulse. That's right. The figure 2s in all the articles, right? The impulse. And that's huge. That's a huge discovery, because that's like, for all intents and purposes, that is directly maximizing performance efficiency of their silencer technology with the absolute purest sense. And that's a huge quantification of that. Can you maximize omega by minimizing alpha? Remember, that was a listener question by somebody. Well, that's what these people are doing. And that's what they did with the Flow 556 Ti, actually, which is nuts. I'm telling you, we discovered this, and it's true. It perfectly captured the behavior. What else? Okay, what's I think finally, what's another big thing we discovered? That with high gas velocity, comes an inevitability. There's something that's inevitable with high gas velocity. And what is that? That's a big, low frequency inner ear response. What does that mean in plain English? The silencers can sound boomy. I use that word boomy. Okay? That's tied to human anatomy. What's the remedy for it? Or human physiology, rather. What's the remedy for it? Raising omega as much as possible while keeping the alpha state minimized. It's the ultimate dragon to chase. If you want to chase a dragon with silencers, that's the dragon to chase. And you can keep chasing this your whole life if you want to. And knowing HUXWRX, they're probably going to keep chasing it. They're sick for it, dude. They're stubborn. They're stubborn. I don't know. Is it because they've been trying so hard and they have all the patents and stuff? I don't know. I remember when I went up to visit HUXWRX years ago, I could tell the passion, at least the guy I met with. He was like, I could tell how proud he was of how far they had come. It was cool because they have been chipping away at this. And it's incredible to see how it's changed over the years. It's really interesting. So you guys, you've been, if you've been listening to the podcast or you've been reading the research after all these past 4 years, you see these public conclusions we've made here at the lab, and you've seen them unfold in real time publicly, and it's no secret. And we've published things on the website, the boomy nature of the silencers, how that was basically decreasing with every technological step that they made. And all of that, the boomy stuff, that's all been publicly cataloged and examined in detail with member research supplements. I mean, it's been there on the website, accessible for people. And you saw, remember the Flow 556K, right? You saw that. You saw it was reducing shooter hazard so significantly. But guess what? It was really loud at the muzzle. It was louder than a lot of people liked. Why? Why did that happen? Well, it was a shorter path length. There was a short silencer. And what did I just talk to you about? What was so important for this technology? Path length. Well, what did they do with the Flow 556K? Well, they basically made it the minimum acceptable for a lot of people. And was that a coincidence? Was it a coincidence? Like, why was that size with that type of performance? The length, the weight, the performance? No, dude. It wasn't by coincidence. It was on purpose. It wasn't just happenstance. So then, what did you see? So you saw the Flow 556K, this new 3D printed technology. It outperformed the HXQD series. It was pretty cool. So much so, I was running that on my personal rifle. I wasn't showing that to a lot of people because I don't like to show people what I run on personal guns because they freak out. Okay, they get all upset. But I was running that for a while. I mean, it was like really, really solid technology. What'd you see next? Well, the next thing we saw them release, forget about the model for a second. What did we see technically in their next release? And I'm not using their marketing language. I'm using the Pew Science parameters that are public. What did we see? We saw them ramp up omega. That's right. They ramped up omega. They increased the time it took to reach maximum positive phase impulse 1 meter left of the end cap, 1.6 meters above the ground in the true free field. Research Supplement 640, public. Go read it. What silencer did that? Flow 762 Ti. And it did it when it was overboard for the cartridge even. Yeah. So it was overboard for the 556 cartridge. It's a 762 silencer. Still had high efficacy. Still worked very well. Couldn't be argued either. How did they make it work better? Well, path length increase, omega increase by that much, staggering low alpha still. They kicked it into high gear. They really did. Incredible performance. Incredible silencer. It's titanium, yeah. But if it was steel, it would be heavier. So give and take. This is give and take, right? So you saw this. So I'm telling you all this because you have to know all of it to understand the next step, which is the Flow 556 Ti, the subject of the technical article. Guys, it is the same technology. It is the latest generation flow-through, long path lengths, because it's a full-size silencer, like the Flow 762 was, right? Long path lengths, maximum turbulence and surface area contact while keeping the velocity high. And what does it have again? Dedicated bore. It's a dedicated 556 silencer. So what does that mean? You are using more of the silencer now through the whole process. Omega ramps up again. That's right. But what happened to alpha? Still ultra low. What do you get? What do you get? You get the most efficient example of flow-through technology ever showcased on the Mark 18. I'm telling you, you do. And notice I'm saying flow-through. I am saying that. I am saying the most efficient flow-through silencer. I'm not saying the most efficient low back pressure silencer. No, I didn't say that. Because flow-through is a thing. It's a technology. No other company is using it. And that is something, again, that's something HUXWRX probably doesn't want me to say, because you could probably use that against HUXWRX in some way. You understand? What I'm telling you is what our research shows. And we can only speak to what our research shows, and it's public. So I'm just telling you what I've already written. 1 second. Okay, so I wanted to go through that, and we're 40 minutes in, and the intro is like 10 minutes. So I've spent half an hour. I spent half an hour giving you this background, and I'm not wasting my breath. I don't take half an hour out of my day to ramble. I'm saying this because I want any person who doubts this research to be able to come back to this topic in 20, 30 years from now and listen to it. And I want to have all their questions answered. Okay? I don't delete these episodes, guys. Okay? You can go back a couple years whenever we first talked about OSS. Okay? This is a research diary. Okay? So let's get to the article. Because I'm not done. I'm gonna cover my butt. You understand what I'm saying? All right, but I'm not done covering my butt. I'm gonna do it some more. Pull up article 6167. Okay, and if I lose my voice, so be it. I taught a course all day. I don't know why I thought this was a good idea to do the podcast today. I was gonna postpone it again, but I'm busy later in the week too. So please pull up article 6167. If you're not a member, that's totally fine. Fine. Pull up the free version. I implore you. If you are a member, pull up the member version. It's important. Now, before we get into the data, please just read the research caution at the top of the article. You can't miss it. This is put here so people can be held accountable for what they say about things. Okay? And also so those people will stop misleading others. Okay? This I think putting it in black and white makes it very valuable, because it really gives folks no excuse for any misunderstanding. If you misunderstand it, well, it's because you didn't read, and that's out of my hands. Okay? That becomes your problem, which is good, because I don't need more problems. And I do realize that it takes a long time to read. Some people read faster than others. Some people can't read, and that's okay. You can get help for that. I also realize it can sometimes be intimidating to perhaps email Pew Science, or maybe ask me a question. Sometimes maybe I'm intimidating to you. Maybe you're scared. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be scary. I think sometimes people are afraid of being wrong, or maybe like looking like they don't know something. Like maybe it's like an insecurity. Maybe that makes them insecure or scared. Look, I'm here to tell you, never be afraid of not knowing something. Don't worry about something like that. It's better to be ignorant, and then you ask a question and you become less ignorant. It's better that than maybe to be ignorant purposefully and stubbornly, and then you project that ignorance onto others, and then nobody learns. And that's weird. Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. Right? That doesn't make any sense. So, with that said, what that caution says, I'll paraphrase it. It says, and if you don't want to read it, I'm gonna say it in plain English. When gas velocity gets high, silencers sound different, okay? When it gets really high, things become more boomy. Yes. Do not be surprised if this happens to you with a flow-through silencer, depending on different conditions. And the big thing here is that it's bolded in the text. When you think something sounds boomy, that is a subjective term. What I'm telling you right now is that there's a physical mechanism for that, and there's a way to quantify it, and we've done that, okay? We did it years ago. It's just that some people forgot. Some people forgot. So in that research caution, there's 4 articles you can read. If you're a Pew Science member, there's four papers you can read, and they all explain what I'm saying. Please, if you want to see the evidence, and if you're a skeptic, spend the $8, okay? Like, seriously, guys, like, if you're, like, I don't want to hear it anymore. If you're a skeptic, spend the $8 to read it. And if you're still not convinced, email me. I'll one-on-one, I'll answer your questions about it. Okay, but if until you're done that, I don't want to hear it. Okay, so right before we dig into the data, I'm going to set the stage. I want to set the stage. What are you looking at? Remember, you've seen several flow-through silencers from OSS and HUXWRX on the Mark 18. What makes this one different? Why is this one different? Okay, well, it's the latest tech, full size, so you get the long flow paths, dedicated bore, and that's what makes it different from the flow-through, the Flow 762 Ti. It is different than that. It's tweaked and optimized for 556. Does that make sense? That's the pay dirt here. If you really want to know high level why this is important, it's because you had the Flow 762 Ti. We had tested it on 556, and people are like, wow, that's pretty good. Now, and everyone asks, well, man, it would be great if it's a dedicated 556 silencer. Well, now it is. It's the same exact size. Pay attention, because the performance is wild. Bottom line up front, 40.4 suppression rating, 1 meter left of the end of the silencer, 1.6 meters above the ground in the true free field, away from all reflecting surfaces other than the ground. Okay. 32.4 suppression rating, 6 inches right of the shooter's right ear. And that brings us to a composite suppression rating of 41.3. Okay. This is ridiculous, objectively. The shooter's ear suppression rating, okay, on the untuned Mark 18 is ridiculous. And the muzzle rating in combination with that, bro, that's huge. That's a huge part of this. That's a big deal. And this is why this is so different than the Flow 556K. You feel me? Remember the K? Oh, you remember. High shooter's ear rating. Absolutely. People were like, wow, that's crazy. People got mad at Pew Science about that. They got super mad, super angry. Like frothing at the mouth mad. Like not a little bit angry. People got so mad. In fact, they orchestrated campaigns to tell everyone just how bad we are at stuff. It's true. We have receipts. Okay? That's how mad it made them. And you know why they got so upset? Because they only looked at that big number at the top of the page. They forgot to look at both the muzzle and the ear detailed ratings, like the articles say. They didn't read any of the research supplements either. They wanted to be mad, dude. They wanted to be angry. So now you see the point of that research caution. You see this? These results are wild. But you got to have them in context, right? So now there's no excuses. Right? No excuses anymore by anybody. No one gets to be mad anymore because they did the homework for you. Put it all up front. That way, if you don't read it, well, that's on you. If you fail the test, well, you didn't read, so can't read for you. So you want to see some reality? Let's talk reality. I like reality. It's the best. I don't like to make things up. I like to have reality, and we talk about reality. Can't escape that. Okay? Scroll down. Let's look at what makes this thing tick. Let's look at its fingerprint. Okay, you scroll down past that table, which, boy, it's going to do you no good. Why is that table going to do you no good? Because it's just a test report summary for completeness. That's why. People forgot that and they freaked out. They try to use that for stuff. Well, don't do that. The suppression rating's there. Scroll down to Figure 1. Let's look at some data. Figure 1A, Figure 1B, fingerprint, blast over pressure in the free field. Now, right away, you're looking at this, right? It's kind of unusual, somewhat unusual. And you might even think, man, hey, wait a minute, Jay, I You sure this is a flow-through silencer from HUXWRX? I don't know. Are you sure? I mean, yeah, it does blow down kind of fast. I guess that's true. Yeah, the return to battery does take quite a long time. I see the bolt carrier group returning. Yeah, you're testing the free field, so we can definitely see that. We know that's real. Okay. But when we look at figure 1B in the early time, it doesn't look as chaotic as we think it should look. Oh. Yeah, you might be thinking that. And if you thought all of those things and you saw all those things, you'd be right. You would be right. It turns out you have to look a little closer. And when you see the mechanisms presenting here, it is taking a long time to vent. And why would that be for a flow-through silencer? What is the physical reason? Well, it's the path length and the dedicated bore, guys. They've optimized their technology, and this is the most mature optimization. This is like the latest and greatest, if you want to call it that. Like if you looked at any technology that was, having another iteration, this would be called the latest and greatest. But what can you not hide from PewSoft? What can you not hide from all you trained analysts, no matter how hard you try? You can't hide the positive phase duration. Ooh, yeah, you can't hide that positive phase duration. And that right there is a pretty telltale sign, and you can't hide the limited rarefaction. You can't hide the heat effect and momentum propagation either, guys. Despite this silencer trying to disguise itself and not behave like a flow-through silencer, look, I was going to say OSS. HUXWRX tried. Oh, boy, did HUXWRX try to hide the fact that this was a flow-through silencer. Despite them trying to hide it, it is, in fact, still a flow-through silencer, and we can tell just by looking at its fingerprint. Now, hats off to HUXWRX, because boy, howdy did they make this thing try to fool people. And if you didn't know any better, you might think it's not a flow-through silencer. That is until you shoot it. No gas in your face, and it'll sound pretty deep. And then you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, it's a HUXWRX. Oh, okay, got it. Okay. And it's in the data, guys. This is in the data. It's in the research supplements. It's all here. This is why we test the way we do. This is why we show you what we're showing you. Look at the momentum transfer potential. The impulse history is in figure 2. Okay? You see how it's typical HUXWRX behavior? What's one of the things I told you about earlier that ramps up the efficiency? Right? You can't hide this. It's surface area contact. It's turbulence, and it's time under contact. It's a path length. Why? Heat transfer. What happens when that primary mechanism works super well? I mean, you're going to get efficiency, and it's going to start working, and you can't hide it. Things are going to start to heat up, right? Have you ever heard someone talk about when they shoot a HUXWRX rifle silencer, it's one of the things they might complain about is mirage when they're shooting? And they're like, man, the silencer gets really hot really quickly. Yeah, things are starting to heat up. What happens when they heat up? They start to work less well. Right? Because not only is your heat sink getting hot, but now you're dumping superheated gas into an area where it doesn't want to expand as much, right? It's already hot there. Yeah, the physics are changing. What happens then? The momentum increases out of the distal end later in the shot string. As the shot string goes longer, as you continue to shoot, the momentum climbs in amplitude. So you look at figure 2, and this is broken down for you there in figure 2B, okay? In figure 2A, you can kind of see it happening, but I know there's a lot of curves jumbled up. In figure 2B, you can see it broken down, okay? You see first FRP comes up, bam, super quickly. You get that plateau. In shot 2, it drops, okay? It's broken down. That FRP that you see, it masks it pretty well post-peak. Or I'm sorry, pre-peak, post-initial plateau. Pretty good masking. Again, you can't hide it. You can't hide it from PewSoft, but it does the silencer does partially mask it. Then you get to shot 2, amplitude drops way down. Okay, bravo. Good job. Shot 3, okay, still doing pretty good. Still tracking. But then what happens in shot 4? Starting to pull off that mask. You can't quite hide what's going on. Shot 5, you can see your face now. The mask is completely off. You can see your face. Now, shot 6, we didn't include shot 6 in the calculations, but we show it for completeness. What do you see in shot 6? Oh my God, it's HUXWRX Flow-Through. With the name on a t-shirt. You can't try to hide anything now, right? The cops are here. The lights are on. You're going to jail. Right? Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. We know who it is. They can't hide. It's HUXWRX, and you can see that in shot 6, right? You could hide for a minute, but after a while, it's unmistakable. And those are the signs we see, okay? And it's all tied to physical reality. It's all tied to real test data. It's all tied to the real analysis. So if anyone has any questions about that, they can email us, right? Okay, because that's the progression, and that's one of the reasons we plot impulse like we do, in addition to pressure, because you wouldn't really be able to see that full story without looking in the impulse amplitudes, right? The blast momentum transfer potentials. If you don't look at gas momentum, how are you really going to understand a HUXWRX silencer? Right, makes sense when you say it like that, right? Yeah. Anyway. I think it's a big deal. Guys. There are tons of research notes in the article. They're long, and this is one of those things. It's written to be an absolutely complete treatise on this, and to be a reference forever. So you should be able to come back to this, just like you can go back to the old HXQD stuff. You should be able to come back to this a few years later, and it should still hold up. And that's the silencer sound standard research pedigree. We didn't just like test the silencer and show you some waveforms with no analysis or something, right? We did it completely and correctly, thoroughly. Okay, that's why it's like this, and we cross-referenced it with the entire pedigree. It all references back to other stuff too, and we put the links in there so you don't have to go hunting. You should be able to see stuff, and so you see what this thing is doing, and you got to understand there are multiple ways to build a mousetrap, right? There's a bunch of ways to build a mousetrap if you want to catch some mice, and so this is flow-through. And what's an alternative? What's an alternative flow-through? Well, that would be like a hybrid design, right? And so what's a hybrid design? Well, it's when you combine elements of the high flow rate tech with the conventional elements or other types of technologies, and physically, one of the primary differences is you're probably going to increase your alpha and your omega within a certain tolerance. Okay, you're not going to be able to you're not going to be able to keep your alpha as low and still perform as well. And if you want to operate by varying those parameters within a tolerance, well, whose tolerance do you use? Well, you use the designer's tolerance. It's the chef's choice. Okay, it's the chef's choice. And why does it boil down to that? Like, why would I say it like that? Well, it's because if you also want to make a true flow-through silencer, what would you have to do? Well, you'd have to maintain flow velocity, okay? What is one of the only ways to do that while still achieving efficacy? Well, you got to maximize surface area contact and increase turbulence. Okay. Well, who's done that the best? Well, spoiler alert, HUXWRX has done that specific thing the best. To this day. I have not seen another way. And maybe that's what they patent, I guess. I'm not a patent attorney, but I guess maybe that's what the secret sauce is, right? That tripod I talked about. And that's what you would have to do. You can't make flow through without that. So you have to have other ways. Now, what else could you do, like if you're willing to drop velocity? Several things. If you're willing to drop velocity, well, now you can do a lot. Because look, you have to give up one of the legs of the tripod if you want to change, right? So what could you do if you're willing to do one of those? What if you wanted to drop velocity? Well, now you can do several things, and you have to ask yourself, well, is it bad? Would it be bad to drop velocity? Well, no. And when I say velocity, I'm talking about gas velocity. I'm not talking about your projectile. I'm talking about flow velocity. Is it bad to drop velocity? And I think the answer is no. Not necessarily. In fact, I think there's some positives to doing it. And I would say, I mean, one thing, you want to get away from that boomy signature. No, drop velocity. You want to like reduce significant reflections. Maybe you drop some velocity. Maybe you could. Why? Because you're changing your wave shape a little bit. Okay. Do you want to be quieter overall? Then maybe you drop your velocity. Okay. And when you let yourself do it, when you expand your mind further to morph into what you would want to do, get away from this true flow through. When you let yourself do that, when you let yourself change flow rate in early and late time, you become, I think, a little more flexible in your design window, and you can do some very interesting things. And you just flex a little bit. And what are two hybrid technologies that carefully do that, both in completely different ways than flow through, and actually completely different ways than each other? Well, it's the PIP from PTR and it's the surge bypass from CAT. That's right. Completely different from each other and completely different from flow through as well. And I would say right now, the three most insane technologies in high flow rate silencers are flow through, PIP, and surge bypass. And let me list some reasons why I think that. I wrote them down. All three of those techs, they're completely and utterly different in a way that none of the three can claim any of them ripped each other off, which I think is cool. I think that's cool. Secondly, I think all three of them can do amazing things. I think we've shown that. I think the third thing is, to get the most efficacy, I think you got to print all of them. You do. So it's an example of technology that's actually being pushed forward and manufacturing technology actually being used for advancement. So it's like, like when people started printing stuff, they're like, oh, we could do that with like subtractive and rah, rah, rah. It's like, okay. Could you do it easily though? Could you do it effectively? Could you do it like in a way you could scale? Well, maybe not. Now you're printing stuff, and like, remember when the Daniel Defense Wave came out, that silencer? That was like, it was 3D printed, but you don't even need a 3D printer to make that thing. And frankly, it didn't perform that well. And it's like, well, okay. Now they're using 3D printing to like push, and these three technologies are insane because of it, right? They work well. What's another thing why I think like this is kind of interesting or insane? All three companies are all PewScience clients, which is actually nuts. And it means that the creators of three of the most advanced silencer technologies that exist trust the PewScience Laboratory for independent performance validation. Oh my goodness. Never in a million years would I have thought that would happen so soon within the span of 5 years, but it has. Yeah, so when you move down from these three to others which are like also advanced, like you look at the off-grid stuff, you look at the conventionally manufactured stuff like that from LPM, they're also on board with independent lab testing. It's winning, man. It's crazy. So it's insane. These three technologies I'm talking about, they work completely differently, and I think only the HUXWRX will maintain max velocity though, by its nature, right? Now, does that mean that you'll get gassed out with the CAT silencer or the PTR silencer and maybe not with the HUXWRX silencer? Not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily mean that. Now, does it mean you have a better chance of not getting gassed out with the HUX silencer than the other two? Yeah, I think it means that. Nuance, right? I mean, it does mean that in general, yes, the HUXWRX will probably be a safer bet on an untuned gun as far as getting gassed out. I think that's just physics. I don't think you can escape it. Remember, physics doesn't care about your brand. I keep saying that. It's like, I think that makes people mad. It's okay. I think if I had a personal opinion about all this, which I have many, but if I had to give you one, I'd say that these three technologies are probably something to watch closely. The flow through and the PIP and the surge bypass. I would watch them three. Whether or not any of them would be called something different in the future, I don't know. But in their current form, that's why I would watch those three. And there's something I want to hammer home here, and I'm scrolling through the article. There's just so much in this. There's something I want to hammer home that I'm not sure I addressed explicitly on the podcast already today, but This is in Research Note 3. Please read that, by the way. Hell, read the whole article. Like, actually, you know what? If there's one HUXWRX article to read on the website, it's I think, this Mark 18, the 6167. Now, in Research Note 3, there is ammunition for you here. The Flow 556K, compared with the two full-size Flow silencers, the Flow 762 and the Flow 556, it is a different sport comparing those silencers, okay? And I explained it already, but the muzzle suppression rating dropping as much as it does with the Flow 556K, it is very important to understand that. In the free field on an untuned Mark 18, the Flow 556K does protect the shooter very well. It does not mean that it's quiet, okay? Because the shooter is going to hear the entire time regime of the gunshot, and in late time, they're going to hear echoes of the muzzle boom. It's going to happen. They're going to hear it. In the free field, though, is it damaging to the shooter? No. Okay? Now, look at the Flow 556 Ti, the silencer we're talking about today, the subject silencer. The full size. The shooter's ear suppression rating, it's very similar, right? I think it went up like a point or something, whatever. Very similar. What does that mean? Well, it means in the free field, the risk is similar to the operator. Does it mean they will sound the same? Well, no. If they sounded the same, they'd have the same fingerprints, but they can't sound the same. They're different silencers. Does it mean they will have the same loudness? Well, no. If they did, they'd have similar muzzle suppression ratings. They don't. Why don't they? Because of the path length. You see what I mean, Jelly Bean? Okay? Please do not confuse or conflate similar shooter's ear suppression ratings with identical everything. It is a risk parameter for free field use. It has always been that. If you get near a car or a berm or a barn or a garage or an awning, or you go in your house, what's going to happen? Reflections. Are you going to be safer? No, you will not be safer. You will be in more danger. How? Your ears will need more protection. Why? Because you will have more impulse hitting you in the head, in the ears. The impulse will build and it won't be quiet. It will be a longer duration blast with high amplitude due to wave reflections. Okay? What has the best chance of being quieter in these environments? Things with higher muzzle suppression ratings too. That's right. What else? Things with lower particle velocity. What else? Things with higher ear suppression ratings too. Everything helps. Everything matters. Ignore nothing. Okay, if you have a question, email us, tech@pewscience.com. Okay, guys, we're right here. Please, I implore you, if this doesn't make sense, email us. Now, what else is important about the flow-through stuff? Could be sparking due to the titanium. Could be. Could be flash. Could be the buildup. And we talked about this in the article, but I think other than sparking, I don't know, man. I've shot that Flow 762 Ti at night. I give you my anecdotal report on that, like through helmet mounted thermal and night vision. It wasn't a big deal to me. I think this 556 version's better. I'm not really thinking that's a huge deal. Now, is that quantitative data for you that you can use? No, I didn't give you anything quantitative. Is it qualitative and anecdotal? Absolutely. Email me with questions. We'll talk through it. I can talk to you about my experience. I talked about it on the podcast. Go try the Flow 762 episode where I talked about that. I don't remember what episode it is, but maybe you can find that. What else? What else on this? We're already an hour in. Yeah, we got more to go. Let's talk about how this stacks up in pure suppression rating with all the caveats that I've given you so far in both the article and in the talk. I want to talk about how it stacks up in the competition. Now, that's research note 6, right? Yeah. Research note 6 in the article. Guys, this thing is beating so many things. It's really wild. It's really high performance. Now, in the note, talk about reflections and things like that. Remember, remain cognizant. Shoot the silencers if you can. Okay, I'm just trying to give you a window here. Now, there's better FRP reduction with this one than with the Flow 762 or with the 556K on the Mark 18, okay? And guess what? If you are a member, Research Supplement talks about the FRP in great detail. If first round pop matters to you and you're interested in a low back pressure silencer for your AR, The research supplement's super valuable. Okay, it's really going to help you with that. I really think so. And I'm not just saying that because it's only for members. I want you to buy something. I'm not trying to sell you anything. If I was, you would know it. I implore you. What I want you to do is understand this. That's good enough for me. Okay, I really do believe it's useful. Now, speaking of member stuff, I'm going to scroll down in the article here. Look at the shooter's ear waveforms if you're a member. Is this going to be a surprise to a lot of you? Well, no. If you've been following this research and how ejection port blast manifests, or for that matter, doesn't manifest in blast impulse of the shooter's head, depending on what kind of silencer you're using, when you look at this one, you're going to see some pretty clear signs here that this thing is doing what you want a flow-through silencer to do. It's really reducing ejection port blast. It's a huge deal. It's really important. It's really great to see real data showing that it actually happens. Okay, this is real. I think Figure 4B for members, it's pretty, I would say now we could call this textbook because we kind of wrote the book on this. And it's, after over a year of showing you silencers that are doing that, it's kind of textbook. You can look at it. So, and speaking of ejection port blast, speaking of ejection port blast, and we talked like ad nauseum about efficiency, right? You want to see something really wild? What happens when you make the barrel longer? Yeah, remember we keep talking about saturation pressure, the dimension of time, the performance of flow-through technology being directly proportional to input pressure and duration. Well, buckle up, Buttercup. Let's go to the 14.5-inch mid-length gas evaluation in the next topic. That's right, topic 2. A time of 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 42 seconds. Okay, so we did a full hour on the first one. Excuse me. There's no way we're going to do another hour. It can't be 2 hours, right? Topic 2. So this is the Sound Signature Review 6168. Same silencer we just talked about at length. The HUXWRX Flow 556 Ti, full-size, dedicated 556 flow-through silencer from HUXWRX. Instead of on the Mark 18, we're increasing the barrel length by 40%. We're increasing the gas port size by 6 thousandths. Is that true? Because, 076 versus 070. That's true. 6 thousandths. And what else are we doing? Oh, we're moving the gas port further down the barrel because it's mid-length gas, but your dwell time's longer because it's 14.5-inch barrel, not a 10.3. Okay, so that's what we've done in this test. That's the only difference. Same lower assembly, same ammunition, same silencer, same muzzle device. Okay, so here we are. Longer barrel, more dwell time, bigger gas port. SpaghettiOs. Yeah. Oh no, baby, what is you doing? You're like, oh my God, what have you done? You've upset the balance. You've changed the whole performance case. Well, the Mark 18 is like a comfort. It's like a security blanket for a lot of you. And now you've changed it to the M4. So bottom line up front, 40.7 muzzle suppression rating now, 27.6 shooter's ear suppression rating now, for the composite rating of 41.1. Okay, so your ear rating dropped. Muzzle rating actually went up a tiny bit, but not that much at all. Okay, so what's going on? What in tarnation? So do you think magic's going to happen? I wanted to ask, I think I said this jokingly to somebody on social media. I was like, what, do you think this is going to be like magic time? Where like, like what happens when your gun's overgassed, right? Your gun's overgassed. Will a high flow rate or a low back pressure silencer help you? Yes and no. If the silencer is really low back pressure, like a HUXWRX Flow-Through silencer, it will certainly help reduce ejection port blast compared to a silencer that has high back pressure. But what if the gun's overgassed compared to, the Mark 18? Are you going to be able to drive the shooter's ear suppression rating down to Mark 18 levels with the same silencer on a different gun? It depends on the silencer, because the shooter's ear suppression rating is a function of, a lot of different pressure sources. But in this case, what happens? Because what's the primary mechanism of the HUXWRX silencer helping you at the ear? Well, it's the extremely high flow rate reducing specifically ejection port blast. What happens with the HUXWRX Flow-556 Ti? You actually drop your level of protection for the shooter with this gun, even though your barrel's longer. It is hard to get higher with this silencer and the sound field created by it in totality, even in the free field. It's not that the Flow 556 Ti does worse for the shooter necessarily. It's that the gun won't let it do better. Does that make sense? Like, it's like handicapped. It physically can't because of its nature, the way the silencer works too. So what happened at the muzzle? And that's another thing, because we talk about the ear, right? But what's like the case where you really might be confused? Not the muzzle. Why did it only got safer by like a tiny bit? Why not a bigger jump? Well, it's efficiency loss. That's right. Pressure was not as high. Okay, 40% barrel length increase. That is actually quite a lot. It will do that. So you still have high pressure. You're still an intermediate rifle cartridge, supersonic intermediate rifle cartridge. You still have high pressure, but not insane Mark 18 high though. Not insane Mark 18. Flow-through from HUXWRX. It loves high pressure. You can't get enough of it. It wants to saturate. It wants to have every nook and cranny occupied by that combustion byproduct. It wants you to get all up in there, right? Give it some pressure. Don't stop. Give it pressure. It is what it wants. And you know that. If you shot one, you can tell. When you give it high pressure, these silencers really, really seem to respond well to it. Why won't you give it what it wants? For God's sake, no. Seriously, that's what's happening though. And you'd see similar things happening, lengthening the barrel even further, I postulate. You're putting two parameters against each other. On the one hand, input pressure is dropping, so you have less to suppress. On the other hand, input pressure is dropping, so suppression efficiency with this technology drops. So in this particular case, these two things almost cancel out, and you almost get the same severity 1 meter left of the end cap on the two weapons. Is it crazy? Yes, it actually is. Is it technically correct? Also, yes. Okay. And so you can look through the data. I mean, there are comparisons in the article, and there's, comparing and contrasting of the two cases, all that good stuff. And what do we got in here? I'm going to scroll down here. The waveforms look a little bit different because, different combustion, everything like that. I'm really glad we have this test on the standard because it's going to show people just how tough it is to really protect the operator. And it's really tough to protect the operator on a standard, commonly fielded gun, too. Like, forget about the Mark 18 for a second. Like, look at this M4. And this one has a mid-length gas. Guys, imagine if this is like an LMT rifle or something with a gas port that's like, I don't know, 100th bigger. Right? Because like this is an 076 gas port. I'm pretty sure LMT gas ports for the same system are like 086 or something. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's pretty close. Guys, I'm telling you, you can tune your guns. You have the technology. And you know what? You can tune them and still use a flow-through silencer. You don't have to pick one. Those aren't mutually exclusive. Okay? Some of these guns are so overgassed, unsuppressed, you can definitely improve the experience. Now, should you? I mean, that's up to you. Some folks like things more overgassed for reliability, and they don't care about anything else. Different strokes for different folks, right? But if you want the ultimate lowest risk weapon for the operator, well, you probably should tune it. Check out the Maximum Defense Surge article on the website. I think I believe it's 6/111. Okay, that was several publications ago, many, but you compare 110 and 111, that's the DSX on a Mark 18 and tuned Mark 18 essentially, back to back, same silencer, and you'll see the difference of tuning the gun. And that's tuning the Mark 18. Imagine if you tune the M4, right? Yeah, get way better shooter's ear suppression ratings. You're still not out of the 30 zone because, the 30 zone is still dangerous, but yeah, you're still getting better than some of these. So if you're a member, again, look at the shooter's ear waveforms here, and you're going to see something interesting. Guys, remember, same rifle manufacturer, same silencer, different gas port size and barrel length. Look what happened. You remember that front-loaded FRP you saw in the Mark 18? Did it go away? Yeah, it kind of did. Uh-oh. Is the ejection port blast now a bigger contributor to the hazard? Oh, you bet. Did flow-through help you at all? Well, sure. The flow-through still helped you, but it can't work miracles. It can't take away the overgassed host. That's on you. Okay, silencers can't fix anything. They can only not make it worse with regard to ejection port blast. Does that make sense? Because you're not putting a silencer on the ejection port. You're putting a silencer on the muzzle. You understand? Yeah. Remember, when you start to realize a lot of the hazard to the operator comes from the ejection port, you really start to look at silencers differently. Okay. So let's look at the comparison chart because it's actually not that big yet, and so you can see it clearly. Figure 5, right? It's the bar chart. So we're starting to get a bigger chart, which is good. It's not too big yet though, but we're starting to get bigger, and really wonderful comparisons are becoming possible. And a big thanks here to multiple mount tests, Surefire and Knight's Armament. I'm looking in your direction here. Because what do you see right away? Well, you're reminded just how well the RC2 can hold its own. Bravo. Great silencer. Bless its heart. Also, the Flow 556 Ti and the Cat WB are pretty neck and neck here. Remember, this is free field. Gross suppression rating metrics, neck and neck. It's interesting. The WB is smaller. It's hybrid surge bypass, not flow through. That's really hitting wild performance here. Okay. And you look at that and, you have to realize, and I think you saw this coming, some technologies scale better with pressure input. Some silencers lose efficiency. It just depends. That's why you see that WB doing so good and the Flow 556 Ti kind of having those diminishing returns. Just the nature of the physics. Different technologies, different silencers. Okay. One thing, when I look at the bar chart, one thing that's kind of glaring in it, I don't know if this is like a positive or a negative or it just is. One thing that's interesting is the Knight's Armament performance, the KAC stuff. The pressure reduction technology, the PRT silencers, like both the MCQ and the CRS, all the PRT units, the 2 mounts, they just can't hang with some of these other designs. And I know there's not a lot on the chart yet on the M4, but there's enough to start to look at stuff. And these PRT silencers, just in gross suppression, are not hanging with these other stuff, new or old. And look, I like the Knight silencers. I like the KAC stuff. I think they're really neat. I love the mount, the QDC. I think it's a really cool mount. Does it leak a little bit? Absolutely. Is it bad like a war comp? Absolutely not. I love the ball bearing detent. I love the collar. It's a little heavier, whatever. It's cool. It's secure. I'm a big fan of the Knight's cans. But it goes to show you there's levels to the game. And I do think one thing that's nice about the Knight's PRT stuff, it gives you a good shooting experience, but like overall, the muzzle suppression is just not at the same level as some of these advanced designs. It's just not. And I'm going to say something. I don't think it's controversial, but I'm going to say it might make people mad, but I'm not sure that Knights has truly figured out the high flow rate hybrid design yet. And again, I think they're cool silencers. I think there's a lot of great things about them. I just think they're a little behind in the high flow rate arena, not necessarily in operation of the weapon system. I think they have that licked. I think they're a little bit behind in gross signature suppression when it comes to overpressure. Now, I think their flash is pretty good given the flow rate. I think the durability. I think there's a lot of great things about the silencer. I just think the overall pressure signature, the sound, I think it suffers, and I think that's objective. And I think we have tons of Knights data on the website for you to see and peruse. Just that's reality. And when I think about that, my mind naturally goes to Surefire and specifically the RC3, which is not in this chart. You think about the RC3, high flow rate? Yeah, absolutely. I just don't think it's done as well as some of these other folks who've been doing high flow rate in a purpose-built way from the beginning, like HUXWRX. And that's interesting. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm saying that in signature suppression, I think there are levels to this with a high flow rate game, and you're seeing now how complicated it can be to do. And whether it's a true flow through or it's a hybrid, there's levels to this. Okay, and this is really interesting. And so overall, just to kind of conclude this part of it, I think the HUXWRX Flow silencers are interesting. They self-tighten on their mounts. I've talked about that before, because they're left-hand threaded to the taper mounts, and the jet thrust from the distal end, because it's at an angle, it will self-tighten them as you shoot, which I think is so slick. It's interesting. Now, you shoot a lot. Sometimes they get stuck, but not. You let them cool, it'll be all right. I do think people sleep on their mount, their proprietary mount for the HUXWRX. They're pretty good. This is one of the cases where it's like, why would you want a hub thing? It's like if you're shooting a HUXWRX silencer, like a flow model, like why would you ever want that to be a different mount? It works so well. It's a great taper, and it self-tightens. Like, what's not to like about that? Like, I don't think I've met anyone who doesn't like their mount. It works really well for most of the guns. You know what I mean? So it's cool. That's a lot of info. There's positives and negatives to these silencers. There's tons of negatives in the article. There's tons of positives too. We've talked to about an hour and a half total for this, and we're going to talk a little bit more in general about low back pressure in the next topic. That's what I want to do. Let's move to the final topic. I know it's a member supplement, so not all of you can see it, but let me just say a few words about it. And maybe we can help some folks out who are not members who are not going to read it. Maybe they just get something and maybe they'll have an epiphany. Okay, so let's move into topic 3. At a time of 1 hour, 26 minutes, and 49 seconds. Okay, man, I hope I'm doing this justice. It's late, and I hope I'm not like just pushing through and not doing it well. But it's a lot. That's what happens when we have so much to talk about in one episode. It gets really long. So, and it's topic 3. This is Research Supplement 6169, and this is only for members. But what this is doing is this is taking the top silencers in shooter's ear protection on the Mark 18, and it's putting them head to head. It's the top 6, except for like I might have omitted one because of like brevity, but whatever. You get flow through, surge bypass, PIP, and LBP, and those are all technologies from different companies, and it's in 6 silencers total. Okay, and so this is the public discussion about that member article, that head-to-head comparison. And again, there's only so much we can talk about on the podcast because it's member-only research. But I think if you're not a member, just go look at the article preview, because there is an article preview you can pull up. There's a free article preview. There's a lot of good information in that. Of course, it doesn't have the analysis, which is crazy, but it has a lot of info. And at least it has enough information, I think, to get you thinking. And if that's all that this does, that's fine. The theme of the entire talk today has been optimization, right? And what's the central character? It's flow rate. So when you think about flow through, and when you think about the other technologies that try to mimic its flow rate and be more effective at suppression, you try to like pick some of the legs of the tripod, cut one off, and put like a robotic leg and make it work, or whatever the analogy is, kind of like enhance what flow through has done and make it better. When you think about those techs, you really have to wonder who's going to end up building the best mousetrap to do it. Who's going to win this? And I've seen the arguments get into stuff like sometimes people are trying to blame certain parties that this type of competition is even happening. Like what, you're going to blame OSS and HUXWRX for the fact that people want flow-through silencers? What, you want to blame the people who don't want gas blowback in their face? Blame them. I don't know. It's not like the HUXWRX stuff is a solution in search of a problem. It's definitely driven by a real desire to not have to mess with your gun. you don't want to have to mess with your gun to get it to run right for most people, and you don't want stuff blowing back in your face when you shoot things. And so that's what the OSS stuff was driven by, and now HUXWRX after their rebranding or whatever. And so it's a legitimate need, right? And it's a legitimate want, at least, right, by a lot of folks too. So as far as like a trend goes, well, I've seen this trend. I don't think it's going away. I don't think it's a fad. I think it's here to stay, and I think you're seeing more and more folks start doing it because more and more folks have shot the HUXWRX stuff and liked it so much the other companies were like, oh man, we're missing out on this, I think. Is there other military drivers too and contract drivers? Sure. But, the civilian market's huge, guys. Or at least the consumer market's huge, so it's non-trivial. And so one of the best ways to do this is really create competition, or at least a venue for competition to happen. So the thought in this article is, okay, we've tested a ton of silencers on the Mark 18, right? And the Flow 556 Ti, that analysis was just published in 2 papers, Mark 18 and M4. It's got a really high shooter's ear suppression rating. Let's take all the highest shooter's ear suppression rating silencers on the Mark 18. Let's put them head to head, see how they compare. And again, one of the best ways to compare them is in competition. And a really good way to have a competition is show more detail than you see in the rankings table or in the regular articles. One way is to go super deep into the signatures and step away for a second from that dimension of time. That's right. Step away from that for a second. Because in these supplements, for those of you who are not members and haven't seen this, in the full versions, we go into the frequency domain. That's right. We go into the frequency domain instead of the time domain. And we're not doing what you may think we're doing. Some of you engineers think, no, we're not just converting the signals to the frequency domain. We're not doing that. We're actually looking at what you may hear when you shoot the silencers in the frequency domain. And that's powerful. And one of the things you're going to see when you look through this supplement or several other supplements we've done that contain the flow-through stuff from HUXWRX or even the HXQD stuff, the previous generation, one of the things that you'll see when you look through here is that the flow-through stuff does, in fact, sound different. It does sound different than other silencers, and we can quantify that it sounds different. And some people see the PewScience suppression rating, right? And they've never listened to the podcast, and they've never read the articles, and they never see these supplements, and they don't know they exist. And you'll hear them, say stuff, and they'll say, well, you might have this weird little arguments, okay? And you'll tell them, hey, you'll talk to them about silencers and you'll say, that silencer you're looking at, it has a lower suppression rating, so it's more hazardous. Because you're using the strict definition of the suppression rating, which is important, right? And that person might say, well, nah, bro, that's BS. This silencer has a great tone. Trust me. I love the tone of this silencer. And, you argue back and forth. And, it might be that maybe they're full of crap. Or, there might be some truth to what they're saying. You don't want to dismiss people. I mean, some people are they're liars. And you don't know who these people are. But I like to think a lot of people out there are good at a basic level. And I think oftentimes there might be truth to what folks are telling you. And if there's truth to what they're saying, wouldn't you want to know why it was true? Like, what if I told you there was actually a way to know if stuff is true or not? There is a way. That's one of the things this research supplement shows. Actually, it shows why the HUXWRX Flow-Through silencers sound different. And the disclaimer or the research caution that I told you about in the previous 2 topics at the top of the 2 articles we just got done speaking about, that's the bottom line. That research caution is the bottom line. They can sound boomy. Quantitatively, it means that when your ear is responding to the overpressure input, it's responding in a way that indicates low frequencies are occurring. So physically, your ear is going to respond like that and then tell your brain, this sounds like a boomy thing. It's in our data. It's in the analysis. It's in the black and white in the supplement, and it's really important. And so you think, I want you to think about this more. And this is actually, I think, in the free preview to this article, so you can see this too. What else happens with flow through? I mean, when you change the very nature of how something sounds, there are other things that go along with that. Okay? Is it going to propagate differently? Are you going to have different reflection factor behavior? Do you need to remain cognizant of how it's going to sound in the far field, away from you? Not all of these questions have been quantitatively investigated on our website, okay, publicly, but I think if you look through this, you're going to have a lot more insight into them. Okay? I think you're going to have a lot more insight. So when you compare things in this article, you're also going to see both the FRP, the first round pop, and the average signature analysis. So you'll see comparing and contrasting of the first shot from all 6 silencers, okay, and how they compare on average. So it's really in-depth analysis of the Flow 556K, Flow 762 Ti, the Cat WB, the Santrico Velos, the PTR Vent 3, the Flow 556 Ti, 6 silencers, both muzzle and ear first round pop. It's going to shine some light on why the Flow 556K gets a bad rap. And that's important. And this isn't new. I mean, some of you have seen this before with the Flow 556K compared to other silencers. It just so happens that this time, all the silencers in this supplement, they're all really low back pressure, or really high flow rate, right? And so the context is really focused. So the playing field is it's like the champion of champions type of Super Bowl type of comparison, and it really makes the playing field aggressive. So you get to see which silencers separate themselves from the pack and exactly how. This is like this is a heat between the heavy hitters in the specialists. Okay, remember what I told you last episode? We didn't put the high back pressure gas trap silencers in here to try to embarrass them or something next to these guys. No, we put like the Velos next to the WB, next to the PTR Vent 3, next to the Flow. Like these are all like, everyone knows these things are protecting the shooter in the free field really well. So let's see how they compare to each other. So the competition is like, it's high stakes, right? Also, in the supplement, you get to see which silencer may or may not sound the best to certain people. You see, like, sound the best, that's very subjective, right? But what this research will allow you to do, it'll allow you to take the subjective opinions that folks have and put numbers to them and then turn them from subjective into objective. Okay? That's what it's for. You get me? I mean, I can't tell you more than that without just read it. Okay, so enjoy it. Again, you members made it happen. It's a lot of research in total, I think. And HUXWRX, actually, I don't know that they've looked at it yet. They might have looked at the member research. It was published last week. I haven't talked with them, their technical guys, about it yet, but they might have looked at it. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I know for a fact there's nothing in there that is going to surprise them. They know how their silencers work. I've talked with them before. So, but now you guys know too. That's important, right? This is for you guys. And so I do want you to, there is a particular technical thing, and let me pull up this research supplement. I do want you to pay particular attention to the FRP. Guys, it's real. If you care about the first shot from your rifle, the information's there. It'll tell you everything you want to know. Yeah. So I hope this episode was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I did this justice. I know I had to go fast to get through all of it. I know it's a lot of information. It took me over an hour and a half, but we did it. I hope the month of October provided you with a lot of information. There were 7 articles this month. That's a lot. And I told you this fourth quarter was going to be action-packed, and there's still more to go. So I want you to stay safe out there, especially during Halloween tomorrow. I'll publish this on the 30th, so tomorrow will be the 31st, Halloween. Please check your kids' candy for loud silencers. Okay, you never know what they're sneaking in the candy nowadays. You don't want someone to come home with a loud silencer. Okay, that'd be horrible. No, eat plenty of candy corn. It's so good. Okay, the Brax brand. That's like the only type that you're supposed to eat. Okay, I'll talk with you folks again soon. All right, bye.